The last time I spoke to my grandpa, he took off his wedding ring and slid it across the table to me, saying, "When you know you've met your person, don't wait." I thought he was just telling a story, but he passed that night. And I never told him I'd already met her and let her go. The last time I saw my grandpa alive, I didn't think it would be the last. It was a Thursday. I'd taken the day off because I needed a break more than anything. Work was draining, the apartment was a mess, and I hadn't been sleeping. I wasn't planning to go anywhere. But I woke up that morning with this weird weight in my chest. Not anxiety, just heaviness. I stared at the ceiling for a long time and then, for some reason, texted Grandpa to see if he was home. He always was. He texted back with just 2 words, "Doors open." That's how he was. Simple. No fuss. No extra words. Aberdeen was a 2-hour drive from where I lived in Seattle. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I didn't even pack anything. I just got in the car and drove through the fog and drizzle and tried not to think too much. There was something about that town, the gray skies, the damp streets, the moss on everything, that felt like time stopped there. Grandpa's house was small and old and smelled like coffee and sawdust. When I walked in, he was already in the kitchen, heating water. "Tea?" he asked, though he didn't wait for an answer. I sat down at the table. The same table I used to sit at as a kid, swinging my legs and pretending to understand adult conversations. There was still a deep scratch down the middle where I had dragged a fork across it when I was 5. He'd never fixed it. He'd just laughed. We didn't talk much at first. Just sat there. He handed me a mug with chipped edges and nodded at the rain outside. "This town's been wet since the day I was born," he muttered. I smiled. "Maybe that's why you never left." "Nah. I stayed for your grandma." He didn't usually bring her up out of the blue like that. She'd been gone almost 10 years. "She was the reason for most things," he said, like he was talking more to himself than me. Then he turned to me and asked, "You ever been in love?" I laughed a little, caught off guard. "I don't know." He gave me this look, like he saw through every word I hadn't said. Then, slow and deliberate, he took off his wedding ring. I'd never seen him without it. Not once. Even after she died, he wore it like it was part of him. He slid it across the table. "When you know you've met your person," he said, "don't wait. Don't wait for the right moment. Don't assume you've got more time. Just don't wait." I didn't know what to say. I thought maybe he was reminiscing, or trying to be wise, like old people sometimes do when they're in a mood. So I just said, "Okay, Grandpa." He nodded once and didn't say anything else. We drank our tea. We talked about baseball. I asked him if the roof was still leaking and he lied and said no. I left around 5. I hugged him at the door. He held on a little longer than usual, but I didn't think anything of it. I even joked, "You act like you're not going to see me next week." He smiled but didn't answer. I got back to Seattle that night. The ring was still in my jacket pocket. I forgot about it until the next morning when my mom called and her voice cracked before she even said his name. That's how I found out he was gone. In his sleep. And here's what I never told anyone. I had already met her. Her name was Rowan. We met at Sasquatch Festival in 2018. I went with coworkers. She was there with her cousin. We bumped into each other during a sound check and ended up talking for 3 hours on the grass. She was soft-spoken but sharp. Funny in a dry, observant way. She asked questions like she actually cared about the answers. The second day, we ended up at the same set, standing side by side in the middle of a huge crowd, not saying much, just listening. At one point she looked at me and said, "This doesn't feel like real life." I nodded because I knew exactly what she meant. After that weekend, we kept in touch. FaceTime calls. Long messages. Random photos. For a while, it felt like something real was growing. She lived in Spokane. I was in Seattle. Not impossible, but not convenient. She asked me once, during a phone call that lasted until 3 a.m., "Would you move for someone if it felt right?" I didn't know what to say. I liked her. A lot. But my job was finally going well. I was starting to feel stable after a long stretch of barely keeping my head above water. I said maybe. Depends on the situation. She was quiet for a few seconds and then said, "I think I would." A few weeks later, I got busy. Work deadlines. Family stuff. One thing after another. I didn't reply to her messages right away. Then I stopped replying at all. She didn't chase me. I kept thinking I'd reach out. When things slowed down. When I had something better to offer her. when I could afford to move or ask her to. But I waited too long. And then my grandpa, the only man I ever trusted completely, slid his ring across the table like he was handing me the key to a truth I didn't want to look at. I've never worn the ring. I keep it in a drawer. Some days I take it out and hold it. Not often. Sometimes I look up Rowan's name online just to see if she's happy. I never click on anything. I never reach out. I just sit there holding someone else's promise, knowing I had the chance. And I let it go. A few weeks after the funeral, I found the ring again. I hadn't unpacked the jacket since the day I saw him. It was stuffed into the back of the coat closet, still damp from the rain. I reached into the pocket without thinking, and there it was. Cold metal. Heavy even though it was small. I sat down on the edge of my bed and stared at it. It still smelled like his house. I don't know what came over me, but I picked up my phone and typed Rowan's name into the search bar. I hadn't looked her up since that summer, not really. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe someone new. But there she was. Her profile was public. Her name was still the same. And in the second photo, taken just a few days before, she was holding hands with someone. A man. He looked normal. Decent. Happy. She looked happy too. And I felt something twist in me. Not jealousy. Regret. Sharp and sudden, like a bruise I forgot I had until something slammed into it. I almost closed the tab. I almost told myself it didn't matter anymore. But I didn't. Instead, I scrolled. Further down, there was a post from over a year ago. Just a quote, "Sometimes love is about timing. And sometimes you just run out of time." No caption. No comments. Just that. And I knew it was about me. I closed my laptop, stood up, and put the ring back in the drawer. But I didn't walk away. Because suddenly, I couldn't stop thinking about everything I'd never said. Not just to her. To him. I started remembering things, small things, that didn't feel important at the time. Like how my grandpa had asked about that girl from the festival once. I thought it was just small talk. He'd said, "You seemed different after that trip. Calmer." I brushed it off. I said something dumb like, "It was just a weekend." And now I wonder how long he knew. How much he saw that I refused to admit. A month after the funeral, I went back to Aberdeen. Not for anything specific, just to clean the house. My mom was in no rush to sell it, and I offered to take care of it. There was dust on everything. The refrigerator was empty except for mustard and a bottle of beer. I went through the drawers one by one. In the back of his nightstand, under old letters and a stack of worn photographs, I found a folded piece of paper with my name on it. He'd written it in pen. His handwriting was shaky. "If you're reading this, I guess I didn't get a chance to say more that day. I saw it in your eyes, the thing I had when I met your grandma. You looked scared. I get it. I was scared too. But I don't want you to carry that fear into the rest of your life. You don't get to choose the timing. You only get to choose whether you show up or not. And kid, I really hope you show up." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and sat there in that empty room with the creaky floors and the smell of dust and old pine. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not for him. Not for Rowan. For the version of me that thought I had time. I didn't reach out to her. Not right away. I told myself it wouldn't matter. That too much time had passed. That she had clearly moved on. But every time I opened that drawer and saw the ring sitting there next to his letter, it gnawed at me. So I started writing something I never planned to send. A message. Not a love letter. Just the truth. Plain and ugly. I wrote about my grandpa. About the day he handed me his ring. About how I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me until it was too late. I wrote I should have shown up. Then I deleted it. And I did that 3 more times over the next month. Wrote it. Read it. Deleted it. Until one night I came home drunk after a coworker's going away party. And before I could second guess myself, I hit send. No intro. No apology. Just, "I saw your post from last year. I think I was supposed to see it. My grandpa died the night he gave me his wedding ring. He told me not to wait when I found the right person. I didn't tell him I already had. I didn't tell you either. I was scared. I still am. But I thought you should know I never forgot you." I hit send at 2:11 a.m. By morning, I felt sick about it. She didn't reply that day. Or the next. I told myself that was my answer. Then 3 days later, I got a message. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I'm not angry." I was, but not anymore. I thought maybe you didn't feel the same. Or maybe you just didn't want to say it. Either way, I've made peace with it. But thank you for saying something. That means more than you probably realize. I stared at that message for a long time. No invitation. No opening. Just closure. At least that's how it read. But then, a few days later, another one came. There's a coffee shop in Spokane that still plays the band we saw at the festival. I walk by it sometimes and think about sitting on the curb with you and laughing about how bad our sunburns were. Anyway, just thought I'd tell you that. I didn't know what to do with that. It wasn't a door opening, but it wasn't closed either. So I replied, I think about that curb too. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just said yes. She wrote back the next morning. I wondered that for a while too. Then I stopped. But I'm not sure that means I don't still care. I reread that sentence more times than I'll admit, because I had no idea what to do with a sentence like that. A few weeks passed. We didn't message much. Just here and there. Quiet things. Little memories. A photo of a song playing on the radio. A blurry picture of a takeout place we once stood in line at, hours away from each other, sent without any caption. I told myself not to read too much into it. But I did. One Saturday, I drove out towards Spokane without telling anyone. I didn't even tell her. I didn't know what I planned to do. Maybe I just wanted to see the street where she lived. Maybe I thought being close to her would give me some kind of answer. It was colder than I expected. Snow in the corners of parking lots, even though it was already spring in Seattle. I walked downtown for a while. I found the coffee shop she mentioned. I sat across the street from it on a bench, hands stuffed in my jacket, watching people come and go. I never saw her. I didn't try to look harder. I just sat there with my heart in my throat until the sky turned dark, and then I drove back. The next day, I got another message from her. You were here yesterday, weren't you? I stared at the screen. Yeah. Why didn't you say anything? I waited a full hour before I answered. I didn't know if I was allowed to. That silence afterward hurt more than I expected. 2 days went by. Then she called. Not text. Not voice note. An actual call. When I answered, she didn't say hi. She just said, you could have knocked on my door. I know, I said. I would have answered. I didn't say anything. My mouth was dry. I sat on the edge of my kitchen counter, holding the phone to my ear like it weighed 50 pounds. Then she said, quieter, I'm not with him anymore. I closed my eyes. I don't know what emotion hit me first. Relief? Guilt? Something in between? I wasn't lying when I said I made peace with it, she said. But seeing your message, it stirred up all the questions again. Not in a bad way. Just the kind that don't go away. I whispered, I still think about you. She let that sit for a moment, then replied, yeah, I know. There was a pause, long enough that I almost thought the call dropped. Then she said, I'm not asking for anything. I don't need a promise. But if you ever want to talk in person, you don't have to sit across the street next time. That was it. She hung up first. And just like that, the door wasn't wide open. But it wasn't locked anymore either. 2 weeks later, I went back. This time, I told her. She texted me her address with no hesitation. Just a pin on the map and the words, whenever you're ready. I parked outside her building around 4 p.m. and sat in the car for 10 minutes, just watching the front door. My palms were sweating. My chest felt tight in that old, familiar way, the way it did back when I almost told her I loved her and didn't. I finally made myself walk up the stairs. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. I knocked twice. She opened the door without saying anything. She looked different. A little older. Tired, maybe? But still her. Same steady eyes. Same way of standing, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. We stood there in the doorway for a second. Then she said, hi. Hey. She stepped aside to let me in. Her apartment was small. Warm. Plants in the windowsill. A guitar leaned against the wall, dusty. I remembered her playing once, badly, and laughing the whole time. I wasn't sure if you'd come in or just watch from the parking lot again, she said, not unkindly. I cracked a small smile. Wasn't planning to do that twice. We sat on opposite ends of her couch. A whole cushion between us. The TV was off. Her phone was face down on the coffee table. The air felt heavier than I expected. We talked for a while. About work. Life. The way people do when they're scared to touch the thing they actually came to talk about. Eventually, she asked, do you still have it? Took me a second to realize what she meant. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the chain. The ring. His ring. She looked at it and then at me. You said he gave it to you. The The same day. Yeah. Hours before. Like he knew. She nodded slowly. What are you gonna do with it? I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I said. We sat there for a minute. Then I said quietly, I thought I was doing the right thing back then. Staying. Choosing work. Responsibility. But every part of that decision was about fear. I was scared I wasn't enough for you. She didn't say anything at first. Then I didn't need you to be anything but honest. I looked down at my hands. At the ring. At the line it left around my neck when I wore it for too long. I think I'm still figuring out how to do that. She smiled, sad but kind. You just did. That night, we didn't touch. We didn't talk about the future. I didn't stay over. We just sat on the couch until it was dark and then I left. No kiss. No promises. Just the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like an ending but also doesn't promise a beginning. And as I walked back to the car, I realized something. The ring never really belonged to me. Not yet. Maybe it still didn't. I haven't seen her again since that night. We text sometimes. She sends photos of her dog. I send playlists I think she might like. It's polite. Careful. Like we're both trying not to touch the bruise too hard. The ring stays in my drawer now. I stopped wearing it. Not because I don't think about what he said I do almost every day, but because I finally understood what he meant. When you know, you know. But knowing isn't always enough. Not if you wait. Not if you think there'll be more time. And sometimes the worst part isn't losing someone. It's realizing they might have waited too and you just didn't show up.